Welcome, tribe, to part 2 of my manifestation debunk pod. It's a little later than planned as I've been trying to balance out my work-life schedule, and for once, life actually won. So if you want to know what I've been up to this weekend, then follow me on Instagram at omcollective22. So that's OM Collective, all one word, 22. And this is where I share more inspirational content, modality updates in terms of the treatments I offer to clients and how they can benefit them, and lots more. So please go over there and follow me. Now, this part of the pod is the one that I find most interesting and that I found has benefited me most in the way that I manifest in the world, especially Law 6. So stay tuned, because the law of vibration is where you will find out what the real secret to manifesting the life of your dreams is really all about. And as always, if you find anything about the pod useful, then please let me know in the comments, like the video, and feel free to share. And if you want to know when our next content is coming out, then please subscribe and turn on your notifications. Enjoy the pod, tribe, and thank you so much for being here and your support. Here we go. Okay, so let's get into law number 4. Everyone's heard of this. The law of cause and effect, also known as karma. Every action creates a corresponding reaction. Your choices and actions determine the outcomes you experience. This is a beautiful law, because this is the law of the truth of who you are. This is who you are when people are watching. This is who you are behind your closed doors at home. This is who you are at the very inner core of your own being. Remember, these universal laws are neutral. They're not good, they're not bad. So karma can be considered the scales of justice. This is where every good action gets rewarded, every bad action not gets punished, gets balanced. And whether it's in this lifetime or the next, because I understand if you're there, like some really hideous things happen to people out there, and some really hideous people have what appears to be these amazing lives. We are not here to judge. It is not our job to judge. It's what we do best as humans, though. But we are not here to judge. And you know, or I know, I trust implicitly that the universe has my back and the back of all of us in humanity, that karma will prevail and justice will prevail one way or another. So how this works in manifestation, little side rant there. So how does karma work in manifestation? Well, you could believe, if you wanted to, that if you've breezed through life so far to this date, that actually you're being rewarded for all the work you did in a previous life. Your karma slate is clean and you are living the dream. There is no resistance, because you've already paid that bill. Whereas, if like me, you're 47 years old and slowly wading through your karmic debt, then you understand that other lives may not have been as holy and as good. And actually, this is my chance for me to redeem myself in humanity. And part of that process is to maybe clear generational trauma, is to maybe make sure that I show up this lifetime as the best version of my soul's incarnation. In manifestation, it's about understanding that who we are in the unseen moments is equally as powerful as who we are in the seen moments. Here we go into law number 5, the law of compensation. This is the energetic return for your actions, which can be in the form of opportunities, resources, or other forms of reward. This I love, because it kind of takes the pressure off it always being about finance. For some reason, we always expect manifestations to include some sort of financial freedom and all this kind of stuff. But actually, the law of compensation is a much subtler, more nuanced law. And so you can be receiving the law of compensation every single day in a smile, in an open door, in a green light, in a compliment, in an opportunity that you weren't expecting, in a beautiful sunrise or a sunset. The law of compensation is the universe's way of encouraging you. It's like the cheerleader of the universal laws. The universe knows what it's doing. So when these laws are in play, they're all running concurrently and all supporting one another. The beautiful way in which the law of compensation has worked in my life is that it has worked in a very subtle and nuanced way, as in day by day, the more I have surrendered control or trying to control the external environment around me and focus more on my internal environment and focus more on working in co-creation with the divine source, the more slowly my life has improved, the more opportunities have come my way, the more money, the more friendships. I've made some amazing friends over the past few years. Not that I don't have amazing friends from the past, but it's hard as you get older, especially when you've moved and started a whole new life somewhere else. So it's looking at those. It's like finding a new place to live for me was an absolute trustful in terms of letting spirit take the wheel, literally. I was at a loss, living in an Airbnb, all my belongings in a lockup, with no real way, having just started my own business, of getting a flat. And magically, I've got the beautiful abode that I currently live in that is in exactly the place that I wanted it to be. Does it look exactly like I thought it would? Potentially not. But do you know what? It's created a safe haven for me and my son to heal after my divorce. And it's been a real sanctuary. So the law of compensation rewarded me with something similar, but not quite as bougie as I'd anticipated. But actually, it's been a wonderful, humbling journey in learning that I don't need all the crap that I thought I needed in my big fancy house in my old life. So this is a very long way of saying the law of compensation will be working in your life every single day, but it's up to you to be grateful and to recognize when it does. And if you can recognize and you can just give that nod to the universe to say, thank you, I needed that, then more's going to come your way. Remember, all of these laws are neutral. So good and bad, this is how they're going to get you, which I think is a great encouragement just to go about life being a fairly decent human rather than a total arsehole. Okay, now some may say you saved the best till last, but I say you saved the best to be the penultimate law of the 7. Law number 6, the law of vibration. Everything in the universe is energy vibrating at a certain frequency. Like attracts like, and a dominant vibration can influence one's circumstances. This literally, to me, is the key to manifesting the life of your dreams. And the reason that I say that is because if you are working hard to be the best version of you and really understanding who you are and showing up as that version of you as best you can every single day, the life that you want, if it's in alignment with you, and sometimes that can be the crucial key, is that you've got all these dreams that you want to manifest, but actually when you strip it back down and you do the healing work, you look at this list of manifestations that you had, I don't know, a year, 18 months, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you're like, yeah, no, what was I thinking? And it's quite clear to see that you were probably working in a programmed way of being. So culturally, familiarly, what was your guidance? What was your thought process? And why did you want those manifestations in the first place? When we truly strip all the crap away that's like plaque along the arteries of joy, when we strip it all away, when we break it down and we get down to really understanding who we are and our own core values, our manifestations and our desires do shift, understandably so. And that's when it becomes easier and easier to manifest, because we are already a vibrational match for the thing that we want to bring into our existence. And if not, we're not that far away from it. Like it may just be a tweak here and there that we need to do. When you're in a high vibrational state as a dominant way of being, you are a magnet. You are a giant walking magnet for everything that you want and for everything that you don't even know that you want, that will just come to you anyway. And you will sit there day after day thinking, I cannot believe just how lucky I am just how grateful I am for all the bounty that has manifested in my life, whether that's traveling to the places you want to go, living where you want to go, doing the job that you love, the people that you love, having a tribe around you that understand you. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Vibration is the fundamental key to manifestation. Fact. What happens when we manifest instantaneously? One of like 2 or 3 things can happen. One, you manifest it, you were in a great mood, you've manifested it, it's not that big, you just enjoy it. 2, it's huge. It's the person of your dreams, it's the job of your dreams, it's the house of your dreams, it's the money of your dreams, whatever. It lands square in your lap, unprecedented, almost unasked for. You just had a great dream, maybe you dreamt it overnight and boom, it arrives in the post. Usually, if you just, I want to say, got vibrationally lucky, that you were really, really powerfully in that vibration, that you attracted it in the first place, you have the opportunity to keep it and ground it if you do the work. If you've just, like I say, got vibrationally lucky and you're still wandering around completely driven by your subconscious, the likelihood is that's going to bounce out of your vibration as quickly as the opportunity presented itself. Why? Now this is where it gets interesting. If you've struck gold and your manifestation has come in out of nowhere and you've not done anything actively to pursue it and then it suddenly disappears, here's why. There is no solid platform for the manifestation to take root. That's right. You haven't done any landscaping on the inside in order to hold that vibrational frequency. There's nothing for that vibrational match to cling to. There's no rock. There's no ground. There's no ledge for it to purchase on. And this is why it goes again. It's like, say you want a car. There are a million car competitions these days. You win the car of your dreams and it's hugely, hugely beyond your own financial possibility in this red hot minute in life. But you win it and you keep it. And then all of a sudden you realise how much it costs to run, how much it costs to insure, the fact that all the neighbours are giving you dog eye and someone's come and keyed your car because they're jealous. And you realise that actually, whilst you've loved driving it around for 5 minutes, the cost of fuel alone is bankrupting you. There's no place for that manifestation to survive unless you suddenly decide that you're going to live up to the standard of the car and you start 2 side hustles that take off immediately and, you live in the dream. So one is where someone's manifestation comes in out of nowhere and they step up and they rise up to meet it vibrationally, to create a vibrational platform for that to stick to. And the other is that, it's just like, oh, well, we thought it was a good idea and we're massively overwhelmed by it. And anyway, it wasn't that great. And you'll start on this cycle where you're talking yourself out of the fact that you even wanted this manifestation in the first place. That, my friends, is what happens more often than not. We lack the self-worth, the self-belief, and maybe the motivation to maintain the vibrational frequency that brought that manifestation in. Okay, so let's get into how emotional frequencies work with your physical, energetic, and emotional body and how that affects your vibration. So let's start right at the bottom of this chart. You can find this, you just Google it, emotional frequencies. And there are loads of different ones out there. You can buy one, print it off, do whatever. But this is really, really beneficial, I think, when you start your healing journey or any kind of just self-awareness to understand what happens to your body when you're feeling certain emotions, what's driving that emotion, and also understanding that some emotions mask deeper emotions. So whilst you may be angry, which can be a positive as well as a negative, actually that may be masking some shame and humiliation, which is about as low frequency as it gets. So how does this all stack up in the manifestation game? So if our vibration is the key to manifesting, when we're in our lives, the dominant emotions of things like grief, regret, apathy, despair, guilt, blame, shame, humiliation. These are all really egoic emotions that are really destructive. They're really low vibe, very high density. So this is when, if you're in this spiraling cycle of thought, these thought forms, these will keep you stuck and stagnated. They're likely to lead to depression. This is a really unpleasant and negative place to be. And it's somewhere, I think, where we find ourselves increasingly more and more, if we are obsessed by social media and obsessed by our outward appearance and receiving external validation. That's where a lot of these types of emotion really start to seed themselves into our psyche and become a daily dominant vibration. So in order to improve this, the recommendation is that you look to go 1 or 2 states higher than the current emotion that you're experiencing. So let's go for guilt and blame. Guilt, eh? That'll get you every time. You could decide that instead of feeling guilty, you're going to get angry. And the reason why I say that is because anger can be very beneficial in terms of you then taking action in your life. You're like, screw everybody, I'm going to show them, and you're off. I don't recommend staying angry for very long. I spent about 40 years angry. It makes you really unpleasant to be around. And anger often hides a lot of other emotions. So under anger comes desire, craving, fear, anxiety. Again, for me personally, I've done a lot of work this year on grief, and actually a lot of my anger came from a huge amount of grief in my life that I had never openly acknowledged. So working through that whole grief process has really enabled me to move through a lot of the anger, which is really beneficial. It's really beneficial to my physicality because that rage, that cortisol spiking, the guilt and shame that comes after having like an outburst doesn't affect me anymore. And I get to be able to see my triggers and I get to decide whether or not to react to them. And yes, some days are definitely better than others. I am only human. So then we go into the next realm. So we've had the ego, which is the lowest vibration. You then move up to the linear mind, and that's more of a very 3D. We have jealousy, we have desire, we have fear and anxiety, we have pride and scorn. A lot of judgment comes into the linear mind. The dominant emotions of things like grief, regret, apathy, despair, guilt, blame, shame, humiliation. These are all really egoic emotions that are really destructive. They're really low vibe, very high density. So this is when, if you're in this spiraling cycle of thought, these thought forms, these will keep you stuck and stagnated. They're likely to lead to depression. This is a really unpleasant and negative place to be. And it's somewhere, I think, where we find ourselves increasingly more and more, if we are obsessed by social media and obsessed by our outward appearance and receiving external validation. That's where a lot of these types of emotion really start to seed themselves into our psyche and become a daily dominant vibration. So in order to improve this, the recommendation is that you look to go 1 or 2 states higher than the current emotion that you're experiencing. So let's go for guilt and blame. Guilt, eh? That'll get you every time. You could decide that instead of feeling guilty, you're going to get angry. And the reason why I say that is because anger can be very beneficial in terms of you then taking action in your life. You're like, screw everybody, I'm going to show them, and you're off. I don't recommend staying angry for very long. I spent about 40 years angry. It makes you really unpleasant to be around. And anger often hides a lot of other emotions. So under anger comes desire, craving, fear, anxiety. Again, for me personally, I've done a lot of work this year on grief, and actually a lot of my anger came from a huge amount of grief in my life that I had never openly acknowledged. So working through that whole grief process has really enabled me to move through a lot of the anger, which is really beneficial. It's really beneficial to my physicality because that rage, that cortisol spiking, the guilt and shame that comes after having like an outburst doesn't affect me anymore. And I get to be able to see my triggers and I get to decide whether or not to react to them. And yes, some days are definitely better than others. I am only human. So then we go into the next realm. So we've had the ego, which is the lowest vibration. You then move up to the linear mind, and that's more of a very 3D. We have jealousy, we have desire, we have fear and anxiety, we have pride and scorn. A lot of judgment comes into the linear mind. So to get us out of the linear mind, you would try and go for an emotional response in the spiritual reality realm. And this is where, instead of feeling judgment, we would try and, let's say it's self-judgment. Instead of being judgmental about ourselves, we would learn to be compassionate. We would learn to give ourselves courage and empowerment. We would learn to trust our intuition. We would try and be optimistic and be willing to change. And another really, really powerful, beginning to get really high vibrational emotion is forgiveness. And forgiveness starts with the self. Sod everybody else. If all you do is forgive yourself, you will naturally have more compassion for other people. We also then start to have more reason and more understanding. We're starting to live more into our heart center. And our heart center is so beautiful and so powerful. It's the foundation for unconditional love. We can only love someone else as much as we love ourselves. So if you're hating on yourself every day, but you think, oh no, I love everybody else, likelihood is you don't, and you actually have quite a lot of judgment for yourself and for other people. And learning to work through those thought forms, learning to work through where those thoughts came from, those thoughts and feelings, when did you first feel them, starting to go on that healing journey and that unpicking process as to, okay, well, let's really get into understanding why it makes me feel sick in my stomach when certain people say certain things to me, why certain things make me angry, why certain things make me want to cry. These are such powerful ways that we can empower ourselves to master our emotional responses and decide how and when we want to react. And we're all human, we're all animals at the end of the day. This does take some serious dedication in terms of doing the unpicking, going on that process, understanding that you might not like what you find, but being willing to change that and having forgiveness and compassion for the person that was, the coping mechanisms they used, and understanding why enables you then to have not only this beautiful, caring, loving perception of yourself, but you can sure as shit spot it in someone else as well. And that gives you a really good insight into your relationships with others. It really does start to allow you to see where the healing needs to take place in others, and then understanding how you will let others interact in your environment. So in terms of how this all relates to manifesting, remember, the higher vibe you are, the less resistance you hold in your energetic and physical field, the easier that manifestation is to come in. So by the time we get up to the enlightened state, which is where we are inspired action flowing into us all the time, we experience long, protracted periods of peace, bliss, joy, serenity, love, reverence. This is the place where stuff's going to come in. We go back to my man Jesus. This is where he stayed. This is where he chose to stay, even in the face of adversity. And fill in the name of the deity that you love, that this means something for you. I was raised Christian, so it just makes sense for me to do that. And I understand that we live in the real world, right? And there are horrific things. We're bombarded by a barrage of depressing news at the shocking state of humanity. And it's understanding that we then get to choose, do we go on that doom spiral with the newscaster, or do we reflect on that situation, send those people our love and compassion, have gratitude for the fact that we're not in those circumstances, and decide that the only way that we can affect change in that issue is to be in more love in our environment here. is to have more compassion, is to send more loving thought to those people in those awful environments. Because if we get into a fear spiral, Carl Jung talked about collective consciousness. Collective consciousness is the consciousness of all of humanity and globally. So the more we are kept in fear, the more we are shown things that incite fear, anxiety within us, the lower vibrational we're kept, the less likely we are to feel confident in ourselves and to go about our daily lives in love, in reverence, in reason, and in understanding. We'll be looking out for ourselves. We'll be like, I'm looking after mine and, my own, mate. See you later. And actually, the one thing that we need to do when horrific things happen around the world is to hold more love. That is such a high vibe state for you in your existence, because we can't control what's going on in the world, you and I. But the more we stay in our vibration of love, the more we can contribute to a global consciousness, a collective consciousness that holds more love within it. And if it holds more love within it, it's more vibrational. It's higher vibrational, low density, which is why when you're having a great day, you could say that you're on cloud 9 because you feel like you're in the heavens. You feel like there's no gravity on this planet. You are literally living the high life, You're off the ground. That's how these high vibe, low density emotions make us feel. We feel like we could fly. Red Bull give you wings, right? It's so important for us to try and connect to those, even if it's just for a short moment. The more that we connect to those higher vibes, the more we begin to understand that we're capable of holding those vibrations within us. We're capable of holding unconditional love within us for ourselves and for others. The more we're likely to vibrate at a frequency that matches the manifestations that we're after. There you go. Here we go, our final law number 7, the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. There you go. Energy can be changed from one form to another, and you can raise your own vibration to change your circumstances. This is amazing, and this is where we go back to the law of vibration. Vibration is the key. Don't feel like if you're in a really bad place where you're grieving the loss of a loved one, and if you are, I'm very sorry, my heart goes out to you. It's not that you're stuck there forever and a day until you shuffle off this mortal coil. We are in control of our own destiny and our own lives. This is one of the most important aspects of manifestation that gets me so excited about manifestation. It's the fact that it gives you the ability to be the driver in your own life. This law of perpetual transmutation of energy is that if you're feeling in a bad mood, there is always a way for you to try and do something. It's like when you're really, really sad and someone makes you laugh and all of a sudden it doesn't seem that bad. That is the perfect example of the law of perpetual transmutation of energy in play. And when we start to take ownership of that, when we start to say, right, okay, I'm in a really bad mood, how can I do that? And you put on your favorite song and you either cry your heart out or you dance around and you have an amazing time and you lift your energy in that way. That is how we change our energetic state. We can change our energetic state as simply as getting up out of a seat and making a cup of tea. And making yourself a really, really nice cup of tea. And maybe even having a biscuit if that's what's going to make you happy. It's all those sorts of little ways of bringing joy into our lives so that we can transmute out some of the lower density emotions. Let's not forget that every single emotion has its place. Emotion is energy in motion. It allows us to experience every possible moment of joy and moment of misery in equal force, because that is the human experience. We live in a dualistic world, the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. We live in a world of polarity. So when we live in a world of polarity, it isn't about unicorns and rainbows all the time. It's about understanding that grief has a place. It's about understanding humiliation tells us something about ourselves. It's understanding that when we're angry, it means a boundary's been crossed. Each of these emotions has a place in our human experience to teach and to guide us. It's not about banishing them. It's not about hating the dark parts of you. It's about how we learn to interact with those dark parts of ourselves, those high density, low vibrational emotions. And it's about understanding, do we want to dwell there? If we dwell in those places, this is the outcome. If we just go visit them sometimes and then, get the train home to Joyville and have a great afternoon, it's just about how we manage our lives, and understanding the vibration of our emotion dictates the vibration that we're attracting at. If we want to sit in misery all day long, guess what we're going to attract? The law of attraction is working its damnedest to bring you more misery. And that's the harsh truth of it all. And I know it seems really unfeeling, but I've been in those low places. I've been in those miserable, really low vibe, high density places. Really interestingly, when we're in those really low spaces for a long time, our aura appears almost like it's square. If you are in a very depressed state, it's very likely that you have any shape to your aura. It's less like you're stuck in a cube. Whereas when you're in a really high vibe state, your auric field has almost like an egg shape to it. So it's wide in the middle and then tapers either end and vibrates in loads of really different beautiful colors. It's so fascinating to know that manifestation isn't just the key to having the dream life, it's the key to heaven on earth. Because vibration, the joyous states of vibration that you can get into, mean that you can be in utter bliss and ecstasy without the need from any external factors, but just finding that within yourself. I know I've done that, been blessed to experience that in meditations and plant medicine journeys and several other. Just holding my son in my arms for the first time was one of those states. There are so many beautiful ways that we can raise our vibration. Even just remembering that can raise my vibration, because that was such a powerful emotion. So this is kind of the nuts and bolts of it all. This is law number 7. If vibration is the key, then this second law is the decoding of the key. It's the crib sheet. It's the insider information that helps us win the lottery. The lottery of life. These laws are just incredible. And like I say again, none of them will trump the law of free will. You can be as miserable or as joyous as you want all day long, every day. The choice is yours. No matter where you are in this world, no matter what state you're in right now, the choice is yours. So what's the upshot of all of this? Well, in my mind, we can manifest in an instant if we have no resistance in our field and are a vibrational match for what we want. But this is rarely the case, guys, and you know it. It actually takes the bravery, not just to dream big, but a great deal of honest introspection, some serious daily effort to raise your vibration through self-care rituals, practices, groups, healing journeys, integration periods, embracing change, and repeating that process as many times as required. And finally, it takes some mental resilience when the whole world seems against you, which it does, often. Perception is everything here, obviously. So what's the lesson? Manifestation is most definitely a real thing, but it's fully dependent on your willingness to dream, to change, your openness to really getting to know the real you. So this is it. It's manifesting from a place of power, not wounding. Do not go through the hideousness of my dating year from 2024. And good luck. Please share as much as you can with anybody who's struggling with manifestations. Hopefully there's a nugget of wisdom in there for them. And I'm here to share. I've got so much more to share. So don't forget to leave your comments and help the channel grow. Please keep them constructive. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care, tribe.